I'm Dr. Pete Economo, the East Coast psychologist.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin, the West Coast psychologist.
And this is When East
Meets West.
Pete, we're talking today about, I feel like I always say this, one of my most favorite topics, which we keep
How many favorite topics do you have?
I think, I don't know, I'm like, they're all my favorites. Like, no such thing as a favorite child. Curiosity, we're talking about today, which we talk about curiosity a lot. So I feel like it needed its own episode, right?
It needs its own episode. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. Although
I know,
you're like the kid that cried wolf, like too many favorite things.
I know. It's just, yeah, I guess what's
You
my,
like a lot of things.
well, it's my geek flag, it's just like, I gotta let it fly. So I do. So, so today we're talking about curiosity, which, is a part of mindfulness, though, not owned by mindfulness. It's something that everybody always, it's a common thing to talk about, like being curious and why that's important and being open. But I think today it's going to be really essential that we define what curiosity is. And I want to talk about sort of the relationship between curiosity, openness, willingness, and acceptance, because I think I always think of them as like siblings, like on a spectrum, because it's something that we can learn to practice. It's a covert behavior. We talk about covert behaviors a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I want people to know that it's something that, you can actually become more skilled at with time.
Yeah, I think we've all heard it, and we're going to frame it from a behavioral lens. And,
of course. I mean,
sometimes I'm not that curious.
Really?
I don't know.
You?
I mean,
I would never say that.
Really?
About you. No, you're super curious.
Well, because sometimes I notice that I'm stuck in some of my ways, or like I'm tired or burnt out in certain moments in my life. And so like, I'm just like, just get me to the end point. And I think mindfully I bring it back. I'm starting with the negative. I'm sorry.
No, you're not. No, I think you're starting with the human part, right?
Ooh, I'm human.
Yeah, you're human. Hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
So, what Pete's really highlighting is that sometimes it's difficult to practice curiosity because, Pete was just saying, like, he gets stuck in his ways. Like, don't we all, right? We get stuck in like our narrow way of looking at things or doing things a certain way, which, we also say a million times on When East Meets West is a part of our design, right?
Yeah.
And our brains are wired to think in black and white and more linearly. So curiosity can be really difficult. Maybe it would be helpful if we started with, first I'm thinking of evolutionary psychology as where my mind goes first, and maybe explaining a little bit about
nerd.
Like, why. I know. Well, yep. not gonna argue with you there.
But should I give a definition first?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
A quick one. A strong desire to know or learn something. I mean, this one's easy.
That's easy, right?
Yeah.
Well, and so we can think about from an evolutionary perspective why curiosity develops. So curiosity is one of these, like, it's both an emotion and a behavior, right? We can feel curious.
Well, say more about that, because I think that's going to be hard for people. Go ahead.
Yeah. So
break that down.
So curiosity is a feeling. We all know, thank you, Pete, for saying that definition. We know what it's like to want to know more about something.
Yeah.
And then there's a way to also practice being curious, like actually investigating. And so if we think from an evolutionary psychology perspective, right, like, to animals that are lower on the food chain than us, like, Pete, I'll ask you, why might curiosity develop as an emotion and a behavior in the greater animal kingdom? Why would that be important?
I don't know. That sounds like a trick question to me.
It's really not. I don't know. Imagine I've read an adorable article today about culture among animals. Like,
oh my God, of course you love that. Yeah.
Yes, it was in the New York Times today, and it was talking about a chimpanzee who I die laughing imagining this, that she started like having some style. She took a blade of grass and would put it in her ear in a special way. And then I know, it's like, that's my spirit animal.
It is.
And other chimpanzees in her social group started copying her. And even after she passed away, it still exists. So anyway, there's so it's a side note, but like there's definitely some curiosity or wanting to know or try things, right?
Well, is that also fitting in?
Well, sure, there it would be. But so like, that's like a, it helps with social connection.
I love that story.
Isn't that adorable? I couldn't get enough. I was walking my dog earlier, just laughing, thinking about it. I was like, that is like the coolest chimp. I just love it.
It is.
So imagine though, like those chimps, I don't know, they're like out in the forest, and I don't know, maybe they like see a new fruit that they haven't seen before. Why would curiosity be of importance.
It might bring them some food that they didn't have in the past.
That's right. They might go investigate what it is.
They might go investigate,
right?
yeah.
They might go investigate. So this is really foundational to exploration. Now, I'm sure there are listeners that are hearing that and going like, well, that fruit might be poisonous, right?
That's
It's
right.
like,
Well, my mom would have said that. I honestly think that everything that grows in a tree is poisonous. Thanks, Mom.
There is the trite saying, curiosity killed the cat. And it's like, okay,
she said that a lot too.
I'm sure she did. So it's like, yeah, curiosity doesn't guarantee, just like what we always talk about, like that we own the outcome. We don't know what it's going to be, but it also helps us to explore and try things that are new, right?
Yeah. And you have to do that. And I think what I'm getting at evolutionarily is when you're in certain areas or regions, that if you're only eating grass, for example, although I think about those horses sometimes, and I guess it's because they eat hay and other food, but there's a bunch of where I live, and like they're just out eating grass all day, and like doesn't it stop? Like grass doesn't grow that fast.
Right. And so you're saying like they have to go out and get curious about what else might be there.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where it's like survival. Yeah,
it's survival, absolutely, and it contributes to learning. Actually, right? To that point, it's about survival. It's like learning new food to eat, new social connections to be made, right? New places to live. That if we didn't have curiosity, it would significantly impede our ability to grow, right? To learn new things. So with that baseline here, Pete, I would ask you, how might this apply to our modern human lives? And learning. What
we like and don't like. Curiosity helps. One of the metaphors I like to use is like a buffet. So you don't know what you're like and don't like until you try. If you fill up on what you know you like,
right,
then you're too full to try the other stuff that you're curious about or that you're not sure if you like.
Right. Like if I only ever ate Domino's pizza when I lived in New York, I would have never learned that New York pizza is pretty darn delicious.
Well, first of all, every New Yorker just rolled their eyes that you even referenced New York pizza with Domino's. You and I are the only two that think that that's okay. Secondly, I think our listeners need to hear that I still have the gift card for my birthday that Nikki got me that I'm still trying to spend so that it's done.
To Domino's.
To Domino's.
Yes, that's right. Just to be clear.
Yes. Right. But if you only ate that all the time, you would get tired. Yeah. And you want to see what else you like, because maybe you like it with anchovies or with olives or with peppers. So remaining curious allows you to also see what you like and don't like. And that kind of makes me think about values, because
you are literally just reading my mind.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead, Dr. Rubin.
Only to say, I was like, that was literally those words were in my mind. So go ahead. Yes.
Because I don't know where I want to go unless I've actually tried to go in certain places. Like I don't know if I like cold or warm water, or somewhere in the middle. I don't know if I like a certain area, a region of the country, or a certain food. I need to explore, and that's where curiosity comes in.
Yeah, and this is also a lovely segue to talk about curiosity's relationship with openness, willingness, and acceptance. Beautiful. Right? That, which of course, all roads lead to mindfulness, part of a mindful practice as well. Which is that, in order to learn and to try things and move forward, including with our values and what we connect with, we have to be willing to take a risk, right? And without judging it. And I think that is where people tend to get stuck, because either they think, like if you're judging something as good or bad, like it immediately shuts down your curiosity, right? Like you're saying, I already know the answer and this is the right way or the wrong way of doing something, so that you're not going to try anything there. And it's also going to contribute to that false belief that you own the outcome, that you know what's going to happen. We don't ever know what's on the other side of this moment.
Why do we get less risky as we get older? Are you becoming less risky as you're getting older?
That's funny that you say that, because I was actually just thinking I think it's
the opposite.
I think it's the opposite for some
you,
people.
For some people, maybe.
But no, I think it depends. I think some people, I think some people get more entrenched in their rigid approaches or beliefs with age. They just keep practicing things that don't work. And I think in other people with experience and exposure to all different types of people and ways of doing things, that they become more flexible and they become more curious to say, like, you know what, I don't know everything. It's like, I'm always like tell people, like, don't trust anybody that says they have the answers to everything, because no one does, right?
My mom always said, don't trust anyone that says, trust me.
Your mom is full of so many pearls of wisdom today. I love it.
Oh, goodness. Oh, Mom.
Mom. Yeah. So what do you think that you're getting less,
Totally.
open? With
Totally.
time, really?
Yeah. Well, except it's not, when I got defensive when you said rigid, because I don't feel like it's a rigid, less risk taking. I just feel like it's like, like an aversion to fear and an aversion to risk, an aversion to adrenaline almost.
Well, isn't that the definition of doing things in a linear way though, right? It's a control oriented strategy, right? It's like the opposite of being curious. It's like I'm saying that without judgment. I'm like, we all do that, right? It's that,
but like, I'll curiously look it through the garden. I'll curiously try fruits on the tree in my garden.
So what you're saying is I'll practice curiosity when it feels comfortable.
That's right. Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, because and maybe hold on, go.
Yeah.
Break that down more, because we start off by saying it's both a feeling and a behavior. I think the listeners have a sense of the behavior,
or maybe they have a sense of the feeling, because the behavior would be because like if what Pete's saying is that there are certain things that make him feel uncomfortable, right? And so you're like, I don't, it's hard for me to practice curiosity in those moments. That's right. Because it's like saying, this is where the sibling of curiosity comes in, willingness. You're saying, I'm not willing to feel anxious and try this curious behavior at the same time, And so this is actually related to our motivation versus willingness episode, where we talk about willfulness versus willingness, where we can both, you can feel willful, which is like, I don't want to do something, and practice the behavior of willingness and openness and curiosity. So I mean, like, it's hard. It's hard to practice curiosity. It takes effort. I mean, think about like being curious about somebody who disagrees with you.
Yeah, well, and that's a good strategy. It's an effective strategy. So in episode 5, when we talked about willingness and motivation, we looked at like the motivation. And so my motivation of talking to someone who doesn't agree with me might be that I want to get a job promotion, or, get along with my in-laws that I don't really like, because those are strategies that would help me relate and connect. But and the value there is driving it differently. So I think that's ultimately what we're going to ask people to look at for the behavior, is what's driving their curiosity. Yeah. Or the value.
I would say it's more like it's more the value, because I think, because I think it's more that the behavior, when you, instead of expecting yourself to feel curious first and then practice, which could certainly happen, a lot of times what we have to do is practice the behavior of curiosity to help open us up, right? Because that's what I think about when I'm meditating, actually, right? Because like in mindfulness, mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to and experiencing the moment as it is. So it's like when I'm practicing just doing that. I mindfully come back to observing what's happening, but I might not feel open when I sit down, right? Like I might be like, oh, like I got stuff to do, or like I'm tired or whatever, right? I mean, does that resonate with you?
Yeah. And that's important for people to know. It's not like every time I meditate, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I mean, there are times when I can't wait to meditate and I want to, and I just don't want to get up. And there are times where I'm like counting the clock or waiting for the bell to ring. So should I segue into like some of the Zen Buddhist?
Yeah, I would love to hear that. Yes.
I'm not 100% sure, because we come back to the translation again, but I think the way that I would try and integrate this would be around concentration, because I think with clarity. So oftentimes there's been some like writings within the Buddhist literature that look at that sitting or meditation creates this like relationship between concentration, clarity, and equanimity. So we've used all those words here previously. And so with this right or by developing this like greater concentration, I typically get more clarity. Right? And that's what the silence sitting does. And it helps to create this potentially curiosity, right? Insert what we're
exactly.
And then also equanimity, because that's ultimately what Zen is about, right? Where it's about untangling what we've learned, so that we can create this like homeostatic equanimity state. And I think through curiosity, you're able to figure that out. So what came to mind as we were talking about this risk, as I so vulnerably shared my my decline. Is that, that's equanimity. I've had moments in my life that were really risk taking. Like,
you define equanimity for people, because I bet there's some people that maybe haven't heard that word or are not exactly sure what it means.
so think of a scale at, what are these scales called, Nikki?
Like a balance?
A balance? Is that what
yeah, I think
it's
it's called
right?
a balance, yeah.
So think of a balance, and equanimity is when both levels are at the same place. So if I put, an apple on one, I need to put an apple on the other to have that balance. But if I put like a 20-pound weight in an apple on the other, there's going to be like real imbalance there. And so what we're trying to do in equanimity, which I believe occurs through meditation, is create a stillness of that balance. And that's what equanimity is within the Buddhist teaching. How'd you like that metaphor?
I loved it. That was beautiful. And what came to my mind as as you were talking was, okay, so I think another way curiosity is related to that is that if we're looking for things to always feel good, you're out of balance, right? You're not opening up the space that Pete and I always talk about for, pain and discomfort is an inevitable part of being alive, right?
That's right.
Whatever living being you are on this planet.
Life is suffering.
Life is suffering. And so if you're saying, nope, it's got to be this way, it's got to feel good, it has to go the way that I want it to, it's out of balance. And curiosity helps us open up our eyes and our mind's eye too, right? Our experiential part of ourselves to let all of that in, which from what Pete, you're saying, tell me if I'm hearing this right, that's what brings balance.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so being able to see these things, again, all linked to clarity too, because, I think we're so loud as a species.
Oh, the loudest.
Yeah.
Well, because our minds are so loud. They're so chattery. It's like, it's the downside of language, right? Like, it's just, our minds don't shut up, frankly.
No, and they shouldn't. I mean, there's this should statement there as if they're meant to.
Yeah,
shut up.
No, totally. No, that's exactly right. That's what they're just doing. What evolution selected for them to do.
That's right.
And that's helpful in some ways and not in others.
Yeah.
I think another important piece here when it comes to curiosity, and if we can, kind of link back to some Western science here, is this concept of like being a scientist, actually. So one thing I often tell patients is, I'll say like practice, of course I'll weave in Eastern stuff too, is like, I'll say when practicing mindfulness, when meditating, I'm like, it's like being a scientist with yourself. Like you're gathering data about how your brain works, right? Like, do you tend to get distracted by sounds? Do you feel uncomfortable when you're meditating? It's just information, right? And when you're curious, you can take in that data and then decide what you want to do with that. And I say to people, that's how scientists run experiments, right? They don't go in saying this is how it's going to turn out, or they don't go in saying what if this bad thing happens, or what if the experiment doesn't work, or what if it's the greatest experiment ever. They go, you know what? We're going to gather the facts, and then we're using curiosity and openness, and then we're going to formulate a hypothesis, and then we're going to try something. And so, curiosity affords us the opportunity to be clear about what our hypotheses are, and try something different. And so anyway, I think that's just another important piece to this. Is that something you talk about with patients too?
We love data. I mean, so it's
love data. Love
it's
it.
all data gathering, and we can't make decisions without data. I mean, I guess that's the social scientist in us, is that I can't just walk into a forest. I need to know where I'm going.
Yes, and that's a lovely place to end, right? We can't just walk into a forest. You need to know where you're going. You need to have your compass out in the direction about where you might want to go, and then begin to explore. So, listeners, I hope from this episode you will consider areas where you are practicing curiosity, where you can perhaps cultivate some more curiosity, and then be open to seeing whatever data comes, and go from there.
This has been When East Meets West. I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin.
And I'm Dr. Pete Economo. Be present, be brave. This has been When East Meets West. All material is based on opinion and educational training of Drs. Pete Economo and Nikki Rubin.
Content is for informational and educational purposes only.